Thank you very much, Menno, for a very clear presentation again of a very ambitious plan. I'm very impressed by the fact that you're also trying really to evaluate also the rollout, and by the fact that you are combining quantitative evaluation with qualitative information, which is really important to understand why it's working, why it's not working for certain types of groups. I have personally plenty of questions for you, but I'm told we're running a little bit behind because we started a bit late. So I will turn directly to Anastasia, but please, if you have questions for Menno, keep them written or in your mind. We'll have, I suppose, some time for Q&A at the end of the session. Anastasia, the floor is yours. This one? This way.
Okay, so thank you everybody for being here today, and thank you for the organizers of the conference. I think it's a really important topic, and it's really important that we're all together here discussing it. So as the last person in this session, I'll try to do several things. So I'll try to look a little bit back at the first panel and talk about why it's important to talk about financial inclusion, financial literacy, and why it's especially important for young people. Also look at some of the traditional, non-traditional methods of evaluating financial literacy programs, evaluating programs in general, and then give you a lot, I hope, if I have time, practical examples on how literacy is applied in the field and how evaluation is done in practice to be useful and to produce actionable results. So, yeah, I'm good. Okay, so first of all, why are we talking about financial inclusion? And I do apologize ahead of time. Most of my work is nowadays in Africa, so a lot of examples that I have are from the African context. But as you will see, and as I talked to some of the presenters during the break, a lot of the challenges that people are facing in Africa, the governments and financial systems, are very much applicable to countries across the world. They're applicable in Africa, they're applicable to UK, they're applicable in Russia. And as Florian mentioned, the world is flat, so financial literacy problems that we have in Africa are the same problems that are very challenging in the United States and in Russia. So why financial inclusion? Very simple. The UN report on Millennium Goals mentioned that if you do not have the bulk of your population being involved in formal financial services, there is no way you can stimulate economic development, there is no way you can alleviate poverty. The more people are in, the more money for the government to implement social programs, the more opportunities for the people who are involved to take advantage of formal financial services. So, there are a lot of stereotypes about Africa, but Africa nowadays is really booming with innovations in financial services specifically because there are a lot of donors who are interested, a lot of NGOs who are interested in alleviating poverty on the continent. So one of the innovations, the so-called mobile money system, the system which is really sophisticated that allows you to combine all your financial operations on your mobile phone. It's your credit card on mobile phone, your banking account on mobile phone, everything you can do. You can save, you can buy insurance, you can get a loan, you can do everything on your mobile phone. It's more than just a mobile app, it's more just a credit card. It's a very sophisticated system and you can have access to it through a very simple, very basic phone. So once the system appeared 10 years ago, the donor community was really excited because there were a lot of hopes with mobile phone being growing, being available to everybody, regardless how poor or rich they are. This system seemed to be the way to include more population into the formal financial services. So 10 years later, we do have a lot of people using mobile money, as many as 89% of the adult population in Kenya, for example. 60% of adult population is still very poor. So obviously they are using the system, but they're doing the same thing as they would be doing with cash. They're depositing money, they're withdrawing money, and they're paying. They're not proceeding to building the so-called financial safety cushion that was referred to at the first panel. So what is happening, why there is no safety cushion. So if we look at safety cushion from the perspective of 4 predictors of poverty or wealth, for the person not to fall into the persistent poverty cycle, they have to have 4 things. 4 very specific things. They have to have access to a credit line, they have to have savings, they have to own insurance that protect them if something bad happens, and they have to have independent income or a job. They cannot depend on somebody sending them remittances from abroad, which is a very common system in Africa and in some of the countries of the former Soviet Union. So for all of these things are available. There are plenty of credit that can be taken through mobile money. There is an opportunity to save and actually earn a specific interest rate on mobile money. Why people are not doing that? To be able to take advantage of all of those opportunities, people have to understand how money works and how financial system works. Because if you don't understand that you have to repay credit with interest, then you get more and more into debt by borrowing money to pay the loans that you already have, and then borrowing more to pay even larger loans. So this is the way how we get to things like financial crisis in India, where a lot of the poor population were encouraged to take microloans and were not able to repay them because they didn't understand how to invest them properly, and they didn't understand what the interest rate they will have to pay. Why are we talking about youth? In one of the presentations earlier, I think Andrei Andreevich, when he was talking, he mentioned that youth is the future of our society. Well, for Africa, it's not the future, it's the now. 50% of African population is 19 and younger. Depending on the country, 85% of the population can be 25 and younger. So these are the young people who are running largest economies in the world, and are not running them very successfully because, again, we have up to 90% of the population in selected countries living under the poverty line. Another thing that is really good about young people, and that's actually the advantage. Young people don't have enough experience to be afraid of innovation. So they're very accepting, they're very curious, they're trying new things. They were the first ones to adopt mobile money systems. And they were ready to adopt those mobile money systems and push them into society, involve their grandparents and their parents. So based on one of the evaluation study, the baseline study that InterMedia did in Africa, you can see some of the availability of the equipment and the knowledge that young people or people in general need to be able to get engaged with mobile money. So ownership of mobile phone, ownership of a SIM card, basic literacy and numeracy. In brackets, I have for comparison the numbers for the general population. So you can see young people have the equipment. In terms of basic literacy and numeracy, they're even more prepared than the general population. They know more. When we look at the safety cushion, not much is happening there. They don't do savings, they don't take loans, they don't have access to credit lines, they don't own insurance. And if you look at the bottom line, a lot of them are very poor. And by poverty, I mean the $2 a day poverty line that is widely used by the World Bank. So why is it not happening? That's why we want to know why they're not proceeding, why they're not using the services that are available to them. These are the questions that evaluation is supposed and has to answer if you do it properly. So to do a proper evaluation program of the financial literacy, financial inclusion interventions that are in place in the field, the first and the foremost thing that we have to understand that evaluation is not a standalone fun research project. It's an integral part of the financial literacy program. It has to be planned from the very beginning. You cannot implement a literacy program and then a year later try to measure whether it changed the behaviors or not. It has to be there from the very beginning. It has to be adapted to the same context that the program is set in. It has to use very specific, appropriate to the context method. So thinking about Pakistan, for example, you cannot approach a young lady in the street and ask her questions about how she manages her money. You'll be arrested. You cannot approach her in her house because there will be a male figure present. She'll never tell you the truth. So all the methods that you use for evaluation have to be very specific for the context. They have to be appropriate so that they give you the results that you can actually use. There has to be a quality of implementation. Evaluation program has to apply to really high quality control standards, because if you don't use it, then whatever a Pakistani female tells you in the presence of her husband, you will take it as a truth and make investment decisions for millions of dollars, millions of rubles based on the information that's not correct. And the last one, all evaluation programs have to be focused on capacity building. They are not just there to produce feedback. They're there to improve the programs. So how do we go from research goals for evaluation programs to actually building those programs? As several presenters mentioned before, you have to understand your program very well, and you have to know when you succeeded and when you didn't. What are the measures of success? Based on the measures of success, we're building the indicators that through evaluation will show if the program is succeeding or not. Okay. Sorry about that. So here's some of the characteristics of good indicators. There can be hundreds of indicators. There can be one indicator. Several things that have to be there in place. They have to be very clear, very comprehensive, very coherent. They have to reflect the goals of the project and the measures of success. Once you have your indicators in place, what is really good to do is to map those indicators against different stages of the program and against the research components that can help you collect the data for those indicators. So looking at the top of the table, we have monitoring, learning, evaluation, which probably will be the starting stage of any financial literacy program where you would want to set a baseline and know where your participants stand at the beginning of the program. What is the status at that point? Moving on, informing commercial development. This is the stage where some of the feedback will start coming in from the program and from the evaluation, and you would want to feed it to the developers of financial products such as banks or the developers of financial literacy program to make sure that the products, the programs that they are producing are really tailored to the context. And at the last stage, when the programs is over, identifying the social impact, understanding what were the changes caused by those programs. And on the left side, we have traditional quantitative research, variety of surveys, traditional qualitative research, and you can do the same with some of the innovative research approaches, such as social network analysis, mining the big data, semiotics, and web-based research. I will talk about those a little bit more. What's important here is that you have to have a clear picture where at which stage different research elements can be applied so that they produce the more complete picture and better understanding of what's happening in the program and how the program is applied to the participants. Once the map is in place, there are several decisions that the evaluators have to make, and those come to methodology, the choice of instruments, the choice of the participants, and also the dissemination. Who are you sharing your findings with? Will those be commercial banks? Will those be government banks that are in a better position to implement a variety of new products? All of these decisions are based on what is your program about. First, what are the goals of the program? What specifically are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to change the behavior of the entire population or a small group within that population? Now, budget is always an important consideration. Evaluations can be very expensive or can be very cheap, but there has to be a balance in terms of the evaluation cannot be cheap to the point that it compromises the feedback that you get from it. And think about budget not in terms of just money, but also in terms of how many people are involved in evaluation versus those involved in the actual program and how much time it takes. If your financial literacy program is just 2 hours, you don't want to spend the next year evaluating its outcome. And then the context, again, evaluation has to be appropriate for a specific context. So now let's look just quickly at some of the decisions that we're making for traditional, non-traditional methods of evaluation. So quantitative research. Quantitative research is all about numbers, right? We're counting how many people have a bank account, how many people have the budget for the next year, how many people were able to achieve their financial goals for the next year. There are plenty of decisions being made. There are a slew of different methods. You can go as expensive as a longitudinal panel. Right now, I'm overseeing a 3-year longitudinal panel of 11,000 households across 3 countries. It's very expensive, it's very time-consuming, it's very useful for the purposes of the program that's implemented with those households. You can go with an intercept survey and have 10 people plugged in different places in Moscow and ask 10 people each whether or not they have a bank account. It's very quick, it's very cheap. It helps you to achieve the results if all you want to know if 50 random people have a bank account. If you absolutely have to set up a baseline for your study and understand where the entire population is in without spending too much money, you can benefit from somebody else's program and plug your question in an omnibus study. So these are the choices in terms of the method. There are the choices in terms of the mode. So do you talk to people face-to-face? Can you actually reach them? So when there is a rainy season in Uganda, some of the areas you cannot reach. There are no roads, there are no boats. So you have to make sure that you can reach enough people in your group. You can reach them with, in the way that they will be able to answer. Choosing the sampling strategy, choosing people that you're going to study. You want to have, give everybody an equal chance in the population to participate using probability sampling? Or do you just want to focus on 10 random people that you run across just today? These are all the choices, again, that depend on the goals of the program, on the budget, and on the context. What's appropriate, what is not. Qualitative research, the whys behind the numbers. So why 60% of Kenyan population are still poor if all of them have access to this new financial system? Why they are not saving? Why they are not buying insurance? This is fundamentally, again, about understanding the complexity of the human nature in a very specific context. So what is happening? The choices that we're making with choosing qualitative research methods are the same. Are we going to engage the participants directly through obtrusive methods and talk to them? Or are we going to observe them and see how they behave in their natural environment? Are we going to engage them offline, physically, face-to-face, or online by tracking conversations, by mining the big data? Again, who will be the people participating in our studies? Now I want to talk a little bit more about some of the non-traditional approaches to evaluation, some of the alternative, smaller scale and cheaper ways to do the evaluation, to look at what is happening. Although those are, do I have still time?
Yes. 3-4 minutes.
Okay. So basically, here's one of the examples of semiotics. The advantage of all of those tools is that they really help you to dive deep into a very specific topic. Disadvantage, the topic is very narrow. It's a very narrow scope, it's very specific, it's very deep, drilling into one point. So semiotics is a study of the meaning, what the images mean, what the cultural, historical references behind different meanings. The best use of semiotics is to figure out how to push the ideas to the group of people that you're working with, how to talk to them in the same language they are talking and use the same words that they're using. So here are some of the pictures. So if you look at the picture at the right bottom corner that says riches, there is a reference to wealth in Indian environment, in which gold plays a central role. So if you want to talk to people about accumulating wealth, there has to be a picture of gold somewhere there. So moving on, the social network analysis. This goes to looking at the big data and looking at the relationships between people online and offline. What's important about this specific approach is that it's very useful to understanding who are the influentials in the group. If you want to get new ideas to more people faster, make people buy in your ideas, you have to talk to influencers. You have to know who are the key people in the group. So looking at the bottom left corner right now, this is the Twitter conversation. And the big green, yellow, and blue bubbles are the influentials. The size of the bubble depends on how many people are following these people on Twitter and retweeting these ideas. So if you want to talk about financial literacy and get the buy-in of this specific social network, you probably want to talk to this green bubble and the yellow bubble, maybe the blue bubble. But you don't want to talk to the light blue bubbles because they are all by themselves in there. The last thing that I want to talk about is the web-based research. Web-based research is not specifically an approach. It's a collection of different methods. It can include semiotics online. It can include social network analysis online. It includes brand tracking, conversation tracking, web crawlers. There are a lot of different approaches, and again, that's where the choice is most important. The attractiveness of web-based research, that there is a lot of data. There are tons and tons of wealth of data that's accumulated over years and years. You can go back 20 years ago and still track the conversation. It's very flexible. You can change your approaches on the fly, and it won't cost you that much money. And it's very interactive, so you can ask people to provide you data. You can give them the data. You can exchange with them on a regular basis. There are a lot of tools that are available. Some of them are actually free of charge, such as web crawlers. Google Analytics, you probably have to pay. They provide you with different perspectives on the same situation. People talking about your website, people acting on your website, reading different things, people talking about your website on other websites. So there is a wealth of tools available for web analytics, and you can look at it from a number of perspectives. I'll skip the example for now and go to this example. So basically, I wanted to just briefly mention how my company, InterMedia, does the evaluation of a really large financial inclusion intervention program across 8 countries, 4 in Africa and 4 in Asia. So on the right side, you can see all the components that are included in this program. There is a multitude of national surveys. The range of samples go from 3,000 to 45,000. Again, these are decisions that have to be made. For small countries like Kenya, 3,000 of nationally representative survey is enough. For a large country like India, we had to do 45,000. It's an immensely expensive study, but it had to be done, and those are some of the decisions. In addition, we have a number of qualitative studies, and a really great example is looking at consumer experience at the mobile money agent point from 3 different perspectives. The consumer focus groups telling us what they do, how they do it, how they feel about the agent behavior. Agent interviews where agents from their perspective tell us about the challenges that they have with consumers and how consumers are really unreasonable and very demanding. And then the mystery shops where the researchers go to the agents and interact with them and then get the first-hand experience on what is happening. So you're getting a 360 qualitative overview of what is actually happening in that agent booth. So some of the feedback that you can get, this is the dashboard from quantitative study, where you can see that, for example, 15-24-year-olds comprise 25% of Ugandan population. But when we look at how many of them are active bank account holders, there are only 11%. And it's actually the largest group of people who don't have either mobile money account or bank account. So this is clearly the point where the intervention needs to be happening. Now, qualitative insights. One of the things that I'll try to highlight, although we cannot see the slide anymore, but one of the things is why people are not saving money on their mobile money account. So what happens in Tanzania is that people don't have that much access to free money, so they cannot buy minutes for their phones freely. They cannot charge their phones. They don't have access to electricity. So sharing of mobile phones is really common. There is one phone for 5 people. So if I have 4 other people using my phone, I would be very worried of saving all my money on the mobile money phone. Although I do know there is a PIN code and technically nobody can access my money, but what if a stranger somehow magically can figure out what the PIN code is and take all of my money while they're pretending to make a call? So these are the issues that we're dealing with, and this is the element of why financial literacy, again, is important to explain people how the system works, how they are protected, and how the government and the providers of the services are standing behind to help them benefit from the services the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. It was a very comprehensive presentation and very interesting presentation, as well as of innovative tools to conduct evaluation. I know we are very, very late, so we can't take any question, but we'll have lunch now, so I hope that you can ask your question directly face to face. Please join me in applauding our speakers, and see you after lunch at...
I think about 50 minutes. 50.
50 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if we could convene at 10 to 3, we'd hate to delay this session with Mr. Kudring too much, but I mean, like 50 minutes.
So
1 hour.
around 2:40?
2:50.
2:50, okay.
Yep, 2:50.
So thank you very much. Sorry. Sorry. Thank you very much.
No.
Sorry, we
Did
couldn't
we
take
take
questions.